My name is Evelyn Carter. I'm 36 years old. And the strange thing about the moment a relationship actually breaks is that it rarely announces itself like a disaster. There's no dramatic music, no shouting, no moment where the world pauses long enough for you to understand what's about to happen. Sometimes it starts with something small, something forgettable, something like a dinner reservation. 7 nights. That's how long I slept on the couch in my own house. Not because of an affair, not because of a betrayal, not even because of a real argument. Because I forgot to confirm a reservation. My boyfriend, Daniel Brooks, had asked me to call the restaurant. It was for his coworker's birthday. I had been in back-to-back meetings that day, managing 3 separate distribution timelines across 2 states, and somewhere between shipment delays and supplier calls, I forgot. The restaurant gave the table away. They still had dinner. The food was fine. The night went on. But when Daniel got home, he didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "You don't understand what you did wrong," he told me calmly, standing in the kitchen like he was explaining a policy violation. I said, "I forgot to confirm." He shook his head slightly. Not angry, disappointed. "No, you showed me I'm not a priority." It was such a clean sentence, so simple, and somehow impossible to argue with in the moment. So I apologized. "Of course I did. I'm sorry. I should have confirmed. I just got caught up in work." He cut me off gently. "That's not a real apology, Evelyn." Night 1. I thought it would pass. Night 2. I thought if I just said the right thing, we'd move on. Night 3. I stopped trying to figure out what the right thing even was, because every version of sorry I offered seemed to fail some invisible standard only he could see. By night 4, I started thinking clearly. I'm a project manager for a logistics company. I manage supply chains for regional distribution centers. I track variables. I document patterns. I identify failure points. It's what I do. And somewhere between night 4 and night 5 on that couch, I realized something uncomfortable. This wasn't about the reservation. It never was. The couch wasn't punishment. It was a system. A system where I failed, apologized, and tried to earn my way back into stability. And somehow, the definition of failure kept shifting. Daniel is 33. He works in HR, which in hindsight feels less like irony and more like a warning I didn't read correctly. He talks a lot about communication, about accountability, about emotional intelligence. But in our home, those words translated into something else. Performance reviews, metrics I didn't fully understand, and consequences that always seemed just slightly out of proportion. His younger sister, Lena Brooks, is 30. She does something in digital media, or at least she talks about it a lot. Her income fluctuates, mostly downward. Over the past 3 years, I've lent her just over $7,000. Not because she asked once, but because she asked repeatedly. And I track things. Dates, amounts, patterns. Not to collect, just to understand. Lena's requests always came with urgency. Temporary problems, promises of repayment. Her situations were always just on the verge of improving. They never did. The camera. I need to explain the camera, because people assume I installed it to catch something. I didn't. 14 months ago, there was a break-in 2 houses down from ours. Broad daylight, back window, laptop and jewelry gone in under 10 minutes. So I installed a system. 3 cameras. Front door, back door, primary bedroom. The bedroom camera was angled toward the window, not the bed. Motion activated. Cloud storage. Automatic uploads. I set it up, tested it once, and forgot about it. The way you forget about insurance. Daniel knew about it. I told him the day I installed everything. He said, "Good idea." And then, apparently, he forgot too. Night 5, Thursday. 11:30 p.m. I was lying on the couch, staring at the ceiling, running through my situation the way I would analyze a failing system at work. Inputs, outputs, breakpoints. I started thinking about documentation, about patterns, about whether 6 years of being with Daniel could be mapped into something coherent, or if it was just a series of isolated incidents I kept explaining away. That's when I remembered the camera. Not because I suspected anything. Not yet. Just curiosity. What did the house look like while I was exiled to the couch? So I opened the app, scrolled through recent motion events, and there it was. Tuesday, 2:14 p.m. Motion detected in the bedroom. I tapped it, watched it. for 4 minutes. Then I set my phone face down on the coffee table and stared at the ceiling. Not angry. I want to be very clear about that, because people expect anger. They expect shouting, breaking things, immediate confrontation. But that's not what happened. What I felt was clarity. The kind of clarity I get when I find a critical failure point in a supply chain. Everything that had been confusing suddenly wasn't. Daniel had told me that day he'd be working late. He'd even texted me around 1:30 p.m. Crazy day. Might stay late. At 2:14 p.m., he wasn't at work. He wasn't late. He was home. And he wasn't alone. I picked up the phone again, watched the rest. Then I went back. Further. Scrolling through the past months, there were more. Weekdays, afternoons, time-stamped, logged, consistent. I didn't watch them all that night. Not yet. I just needed to confirm one thing. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a pattern. I plugged my phone in, laid back down on the couch, and for the first time in 5 nights, I slept deep. Uninterrupted, because the question that had been quietly sitting underneath everything, is this fixable, was gone. There was nothing to fix, only something to document, and something to end. I woke up Friday morning with the kind of stillness that feels unnatural after days of emotional noise. Not peace, not relief, just the absence of confusion. For almost a week, I had been turning the same questions over in my head, like stones in my hand, trying to find some softer angle to hold them from. Had I overreacted? Had Daniel been right? Was I really careless enough, inattentive enough, selfish enough to deserve being pushed out of my own bed over a forgotten reservation? But once I saw the footage, all of that collapsed. Not dramatically, quietly, like rotten wood finally giving way under weight it was never meant to hold. I made coffee at 6:10 a.m. I remember the exact time because routine suddenly mattered again. The machine hissed. The kitchen smelled like dark roast and rain because the weather had turned overnight, and the sky outside the window had that flat gray color that makes the whole world look paused. Daniel came into the kitchen at 6:27, barefoot, relaxed, hair slightly damp from the shower. He kissed my cheek, like we were normal, like he hadn't spent the previous afternoon in my bedroom with a woman he had once told me was completely out of his life. Her name was Vanessa Hale. I knew Vanessa, in the way women often know the ex-girlfriend their boyfriend insists is irrelevant. Not personally, not intimately, but through references, through old stories told too casually, through one framed photo that had somehow ended up in a storage box Daniel forgot to throw away. Through the specific tension in his voice whenever her name came up, too dismissive to be true indifference. Vanessa was 32, stylish, charming in a very deliberate way. The kind of woman who knew exactly how to make vulnerability look expensive. Daniel had always described their breakup as exhausting. She thrives on chaos, he told me once, early in our relationship, while we were folding laundry. Everything with her was a performance. At the time, I believed him. By Friday morning, standing in my kitchen while he reached past me for a mug and asked if I'd slept okay on the couch, I understood something I should have understood much sooner. Sometimes people describe others most accurately when they are secretly confessing. He looked at me and said, "Are you ready to talk tonight?" I poured cream into my coffee and kept my expression neutral. "Maybe," I said. He nodded like that was progress, like I was the difficult variable, finally moving toward correction. He left for work at 7:12. I waited until his car disappeared at the end of the street. Then I sat down at the dining table with my laptop, opened the cloud archive, and watched everything. All of it. Not because I wanted pain, because I wanted the complete map. There were 11 motion events over 4 months, 11 separate afternoons, mostly Tuesdays, a few Thursdays, once on a Monday, always during work hours, always after some mundane text from Daniel that now felt obscene in retrospect. Long day, back-to-back meetings, might be home late, don't wait up. I watched the timestamps. I watched the pattern. I watched Vanessa move through my bedroom with a familiarity no first-time guest ever has. Opening drawers, using the bathroom, standing at my mirror. There are betrayals bigger than infidelity. People like to pretend there aren't, but there are. The betrayal of being turned into a fool in your own home. The betrayal of your routines being studied. The betrayal of someone else feeling comfortable in the private geography of your life, because the person you love invited them in often enough that it stopped feeling like trespassing. By the fourth clip, I stopped reacting physically. No shaking hands, no tears, no nausea, just notes. I opened a document and began logging dates, times, and duration. That probably sounds cold. Maybe it was. But emotion is not the only valid response to heartbreak. Sometimes, heartbreak sharpens you. Sometimes, it reveals the truest thing about you. And the truest thing about me was this. When I finally understood the scale of the damage, I became efficient. At 8:03 a.m., I called my attorney. Her name is Adrienne Cole. I had worked with her twice before on contract matters involving vendor disputes. Precise woman. Unflinching. The kind of attorney who didn't waste words and didn't confuse warmth with softness. She answered on the second ring. Adrienne Cole, it's Evelyn Carter. A beat. Then, what happened? That was one of the things I appreciated about her. She never asked, "How are you?" when "what happened" was the more useful question. I need to end a cohabitation relationship, I said. I have documented infidelity. Repeated. And I need to understand my options regarding the house. Her voice changed slightly. Not sympathetic. Focused. Walk me through ownership first. The house is in my name, I said. I bought it before Daniel moved in. I paid the down payment. I've paid the mortgage in full since purchase. Was he ever added to anything? Yes, I said. A conditional occupancy and beneficiary addendum 2 years in, drafted by my previous attorney. I need to pull the exact language. Do that now, she said, and send me the footage. Not all 11 yet. Start with the clearest examples. I went to my home office. If you had opened my filing cabinet that morning, you would have seen the whole strange architecture of my personality laid out in labeled folders. Property. Insurance. Taxes. Vehicle. Medical. Loan records. Everything tabbed by year. Everything where it belonged. I found the housing documents in under 5 minutes. Scanned them. Sent them. Then I selected 4 of the 11 clips, the most undeniable ones, the ones with the clearest timestamps and the least visual ambiguity, and uploaded them to Adrienne through her secure portal. At 11:26 a.m., she called me back. Evelyn, she said. I reviewed the addendum. I stood by the window in my office, one hand braced against the frame. And? There's enforceable conditional language here, she said. Occupancy rights granted to a non-owner cohabiting partner are voidable in cases of documented fraud, property misuse, or relationship misconduct materially affecting the owner's quiet enjoyment and use of the home. I closed my eyes. Meaning mattered. I wanted the sentence in plain English. So what does that mean for me? It means, she said evenly, that if the court accepts the footage and the surrounding pattern as grounds, we can petition for exclusive occupancy and revoke his residential rights. Fast. Fast. That word moved through me like clean air. I asked, how fast? If we file today, she said, possibly within 72 hours, maybe sooner. Depends on the docket and how strong the evidence reads. How strong does it read? She paused. Then, very. I let that settle. Outside, rain had started tapping against the glass in thin, steady lines. Adrienne continued. I need you not to confront him. Not yet. Do not hint that you know. Do not provoke a confession. Do not argue over text. From this point on, your advantage is preparation. I can do that, I said. Can you? She asked, and I heard the real question beneath it. Can you go home tonight and look at the man who betrayed you, without letting him know the floor is about to disappear beneath him? I thought of the couch, of the fake calm, of the little negotiations, of the way Daniel had spent days asking me to account for a forgotten reservation, while hiding 11 afternoons of deception. Yes, I said, I can. She believed me. I could tell because her tone sharpened into logistics. Good. I'm filing a petition for exclusive occupancy and protective relief related to the residence. I'll also prepare a formal notice revoking consent for any future unscheduled access by third parties, specifically the ex-girlfriend. Vanessa, I said. Vanessa, Adrienne repeated. Do you know whether she ever had a key? No. Any overnight possessions? Not that I found. Good. That helps. There was a pause. Then she said more quietly, Evelyn, I know this feels surreal right now, Don't let surreal make you sloppy. That line stayed with me. Don't let surreal make you sloppy. I wrote it down after we hung up. Friday evening, Daniel came home at 6:18, carrying takeout and a bouquet of grocery store flowers. White tulips. Cheap apology flowers. Or maybe not apology flowers. Maybe management flowers. A visual cue meant to soften the atmosphere before another carefully moderated conversation where I would be expected to confess the emotional lesson I had supposedly failed to learn. He held them out to me with a tired smile. "Truce offering," he said. I looked at the flowers, then at him, then back at the flowers. There are moments in a collapsing relationship where the performance becomes so obvious it almost turns grotesque. This was one of them. Still, I took them. "Thanks," I said. He kissed my forehead. "You want to try again tonight?" I set the tulips in water. "I'm tired." His face shifted, a small tightening around the mouth. Controlled disappointment. "We can't keep avoiding this, Evelyn." Avoiding. That word, from him, almost made me laugh, but I kept my voice soft. "I know," I said. "Soon." He studied me for a second longer than usual. Like some part of him sensed a change he couldn't identify. Then he nodded. Dinner was uneventful. He talked about work. Someone in HR mishandling a mediation. A manager making a situation worse by escalating too early. He spoke with the smooth certainty of a man who always assumed he was observing dysfunction from outside it. I sat across from him and wondered how many lies a person can tell before they stop hearing themselves. That night, I slept on the couch again. Voluntarily this time. Not because he asked. Because I was waiting. Saturday passed in a kind of suspended detail. I did laundry, I answered emails, I went through the house room by room in my mind, quietly inventorying what belonged to whom. Daniel's suits in the guest room closet, his gym bag by the mudroom bench, his toiletries in my bathroom. The framed photo of the two of us from a wine tour 3 summers ago. The expensive espresso machine I bought. The speakers he brought in. The books, the chargers, the shoes, the records. People think endings begin when someone leaves. That isn't true. Endings begin much earlier. They begin the moment your mind stops decorating the truth. Sunday morning, I woke before dawn and stood in the doorway of my bedroom. My bedroom. That distinction had returned with startling force. The bed was made, the curtains half open. The room looked perfectly ordinary, and I had the sudden piercing thought that ordinary spaces are the most dangerous ones, because they make betrayal look survivable. I walked in and opened the top drawer of my nightstand. Inside was an old movie ticket stub from my second date with Daniel. A hair tie, a lip balm, a charger. Nothing dramatic, nothing symbolic enough for a movie, and yet I stood there, staring at those small, stupid objects, feeling the weight of a whole life I had mistaken for safety. At 9:14 a.m., Adrienne emailed me. "Petition filed. Request for expedited review submitted. Keep your routine unchanged. I'll call as soon as we hear back." I read the message twice. Then I put my phone down and made breakfast for both of us because Daniel was still asleep. And I wanted one final private proof that composure can be stronger than confrontation. He came downstairs smiling, barefoot, unaware. "Wow," he said, seeing the coffee and eggs. "Maybe I should exile you more often." He laughed after saying it. Actually laughed, as if the couch had been a joke. As if power only counted when the person using it admitted to seriousness. I looked at him across the kitchen island, and in that moment, I knew something with absolute certainty. Whatever grief was waiting for me later, whatever anger might come, whatever ache would eventually rise once the logistics were over, I would never love him again. That was the real break. Not the footage, not the legal filing, not even Vanessa. This, the moment I saw him clearly and felt nothing that resembled devotion, only distance. Only the first clean edges of escape. By late Sunday afternoon, I had already begun separating the house in my mind. Mine. Shared. His. And by Monday, the court would answer. Monday morning, the answer came faster than expected. 8:42 a.m. I was at my desk, halfway through reviewing a supplier delay report, when my phone lit up with Adrienne's name. I didn't let it ring twice. "It's granted," she said. "No build-up. No softness. Exclusive occupancy approved. Effective immediately upon service. He has 24 hours to vacate, once notified." I leaned back in my chair. For a moment, I just stared at the ceiling. Not relief, not triumph. Just Confirmation. Service? I asked. County officer will deliver the order, she said. I pushed for same day. Expected this afternoon or early evening. Good. Evelyn, she added, her tone tightening slightly. Once service is completed, you are legally within your rights to secure the property. Change locks, restrict access, remove his belongings. Do it cleanly, do it calmly. Do not escalate. I won't. I know, she said. That's why this is going to work. I left work at 3:57 p.m. Stopped at a hardware store on the way home. 3 new locks. Front door. Back door. Side entry. I walked the aisles with the same focus I bring to procurement lists, checking compatibility, durability ratings, installation requirements. There's something almost absurd about buying door locks after dismantling a relationship. But systems fail in physical ways too. Doors matter. Access matters. Who gets in and who doesn't. I got home at 4:36. The officer hadn't arrived yet. Good. That gave me time. I changed out of my work clothes, tied my hair back, and started with the front door. 47 minutes was my estimate. It took 44. By the time I finished the last screw on the side entry lock, my hands were steady, my breathing even. No hesitation, no second guessing, just completion. Then I started packing. Systematically, not angrily. Daniel's things were easy to identify. His suits first, carefully folded into garment bags. Then casual clothes, shoes, gym equipment, toiletries from the bathroom, his laptop from the office desk, chargers, books, small items that had slowly blended into the space over the years. I sorted everything into categories. 4 large bags for clothing, 2 boxes for electronics and documents, 1 for miscellaneous. I didn't rush. I didn't drag anything across the floor or throw anything into piles. This wasn't chaos. This was separation. By 6:05 p.m., everything that belonged to Daniel was stacked neatly near the front door. I placed the court documents in the top box. Visible, accessible, unavoidable. I thought briefly about writing a note. Something simple, something final. Then I decided against it. Notes invite conversation. Explanation invites negotiation, and I wasn't negotiating. The officer arrived at 6:14 p.m. Knocked once. Professional. Efficient. Ms. Carter? Yes. I'll be serving the order to Mr. Brooks when he arrives. You understand he has 24 hours to vacate, but immediate departure is recommended under these circumstances. I understand. He glanced past me at the bags, nodded once. You're prepared? Yes. He didn't ask questions. Didn't need to. People in his position learn quickly when something is already over. Daniel got home at 6:28. I knew it was him before the knock. The rhythm, the slight pause between attempts. He tried his key first. It didn't work. Tried again. Then the knock came. 3 sharp taps. I opened the door. He stood there, briefcase in one hand, confusion already starting to crease his expression. Evelyn, what's going on? Then he saw the bags, the boxes, the officer standing just to the side, and something in his face shifted, not understanding yet, but recognition. The kind that comes right before impact. The officer stepped forward. Daniel Brooks? Yes? You've been served. He handed over the documents. Daniel took them slowly, eyes scanning, brow tightening, then lifting again as the words settled in. Exclusive occupancy. Vacate. 24 hours, he muttered. Then he looked up at me. What is this? I met his gaze evenly. Your things are packed. A beat. Then another. He blinked, like he was waiting for the part where this made sense. Evelyn, this isn't funny. I'm not joking. His jaw tightened. What did I do? There it was. That question. So familiar. So practiced. As if everything in our relationship had always come back to my inability to explain his wrongdoing in a way he accepted. I held his gaze. 11 events, I said. Over 4 months. Silence. Weekday afternoons, I continued. Mostly Tuesdays, while I was at work. His face changed. Not dramatically, subtly. The way a mask slips when the person wearing it realizes the audience has already seen what's underneath. I don't know what you're talking about, he said. I almost admired the instinct. Deny first. Always deny. The bedroom camera, I said. Motion activated. Cloud storage. I installed it after the break-in down the street. 14 months ago. Another pause, longer this time. You told me that was for the window, he said. It is. I let that sit for half a second. Unfortunately, the window isn't the only thing in frame. The officer shifted slightly beside him, not intervening, just present. Daniel looked down at the papers again, then back at me, then past me into the house, like he was trying to locate the version of reality where this didn't exist. "I can explain," he said finally. Of course he could. People always think explanation is the same as resolution. "I'm not interested," I said. His voice sharpened. "You don't even know what you saw." "I watched all 11, I said. That landed. He inhaled slowly, exhaled. And for a moment, I saw it. Not guilt.
Calculation.
"Okay," he said, shifting tone. Softer now. Strategic. "Okay, we made a mistake. It wasn't what you think. Vanessa and we have history, Evelyn. It's complicated."
Complicated.
The most overused word in every dishonest relationship. "It looked consistent," I said. He flinched.
Barely.
"But enough. Please," he said, stepping closer to the threshold. "Can we talk about this inside?" "No." The word came out clean.
Final.
He stared at me, really stared this time, like he was searching for the version of me that would bend. That would apologize for overreacting. That would invite him in, sit him down, and let him rewrite the narrative into something survivable. That version of me was gone. "You're overreacting," he said quietly. There it was, the fallback.
Invalidate. Minimize. Reframe.
"I don't think I am." His jaw tightened again. "You're throwing away 6 years over a misunderstanding." 11 events, I repeated. The officer cleared his throat lightly. "Mr. Brooks, you've been formally served. I advise you to collect your belongings and make arrangements for alternative accommodation." Daniel didn't move. Didn't take his eyes off me. And then, "I'm not leaving," he said. The sentence hung there, heavy.
Predictable.
I tilted my head slightly. "You already have," I said. Something in that broke through. Not acceptance. Not yet. But the first crack. He looked down at the bags again, then at the paperwork, then back at me. And for the first time, he looked uncertain. "I don't have anywhere to go," he said. It wasn't an argument. Not really. More like a statement he expected to trigger something in me.
Concern. Guilt. Responsibility.
But those levers didn't connect anymore. "You should call Vanessa," I said. That hit harder than anything else. His face went still. Then, "I'm pregnant." The words came from him too quickly, too sharply. Wrong. I blinked once, then realized he wasn't the one speaking. A voice from behind him, soft, measured.
Familiar.
Vanessa stepped into view from the walkway, one hand resting lightly against the small curve of her stomach. "I think you deserve to know," she said. There it was, the final piece. Not hidden, not accidental, a reveal. Delivered like leverage, like a move in a negotiation she believed she was part of. I looked at her, then at Daniel, then back at her. And in that moment, something settled into place with absolute clarity. "Is it his?" I asked. Vanessa didn't answer immediately. She looked at Daniel. He looked away. That was enough. I nodded once. "Adrienne Cole is my attorney," I said calmly. "All further communication goes through her." Daniel stepped forward suddenly. "Evelyn, wait. This doesn't change everything. We can figure this out." "No," I said. "Just that. No explanation. No elaboration. Just the truth." The officer shifted again. "Sir, you need to vacate." Daniel stood there for another second. 2. Then he exhaled hard, like someone finally accepting gravity. He picked up the first bag, then another. Vanessa stayed where she was, watching. Not triumphant, not defeated, just present, as if she had stepped into a role she believed was already hers. At 7:41 p.m., Daniel carried the last box to his car. At 7:43 p.m., the engine started. At 7:44 p.m., they were gone. I closed the door, locked it, turned the deadbolt, then stood there, in the quiet. The house felt different immediately. Not empty, not lonely, just accurate. I went to the kitchen, finished the dinner I had started earlier, ate at the table, washed the dishes, wiped the counter.
Routine. Structure. Control.
At 10:12 p.m., I walked into my bedroom, got into my bed, and for the first time in 8 nights, I slept.
Deep.
The first 48 hours after Daniel left were louder than I expected. Not in the house. The house was quiet, clean, controlled. But outside of it, my phone didn't stop vibrating. Calls, unknown numbers, voicemails that stretched too long, messages that tried to sound reasonable and failed halfway through. I didn't answer any of them. Everything went to Adrienne Cole. That was the system now. And the system worked. Daniel called Adrienne's office 11 times in 2 days. Her assistant logged every attempt. Timestamped. Documented. Filed. By the third call, his tone shifted from confusion to urgency. By the sixth, frustration. By the 10th, something closer to panic. Vanessa called once. Just once. Her message was shorter. I think there's been a misunderstanding. Adrienne played it for me without comment. I listened. Then said, "Log it." No response. No engagement. There are moments when silence is not avoidance, it's structure. By day 3, Daniel had retained an attorney, Mark Gould. I only knew his name because Adrienne said it with a kind of quiet recognition that meant this wasn't her first time dealing with him. He's going to challenge the occupancy order, she told me. Expect arguments about hardship, shared residence expectations, and, given the situation, pregnancy. Vanessa's pregnancy, I said. Yes. I absorbed that, not emotionally, just as information. What are his chances? Low, she said. Given the documentation and the ownership structure, very low. She paused, but he'll try anyway. Of course he would. Daniel had always believed in negotiation, in pushing boundaries until they bent, in reframing consequences as misunderstandings. The motion was filed the next morning. I read it once, not because I needed to, because I wanted to see how the story would be rewritten when it left my control. According to the filing, Daniel had been temporarily residing in the home. Our relationship had been under strain. The presence of another woman had been mischaracterized, and his removal from the property created undue hardship, especially given the pregnancy of his current partner. Current partner. The phrase was almost clinical.
Efficient.
As if labeling something correctly could make it legitimate. Adrienne responded within hours. Not emotionally, not defensively. With documents, ownership records, the addendum, the footage logs. Evidence doesn't argue. It just exists. The court denied the motion in 9 days. The wording was brief.
Clear.
Petitioner's claim is supported by documented evidence of repeated misconduct materially affecting the owner's use and enjoyment of the property. Exclusive occupancy stands. Daniel lost access to the house permanently. Just like that. There was a second attempt. This one focused on the addendum. Gould argued that Daniel had not fully understood the conditional nature of his occupancy when he signed it, that it had not been properly explained, that it was unconscionable. Adrienne responded with the signed acknowledgement page, his signature.
Clear.
Dated. Witnessed. He had agreed. Whether he had read it carefully or not wasn't relevant anymore. The second motion was denied in 12 days. Somewhere in the middle of all this, Daniel's sister, Lena Brooks, texted me. The first message was cautious. "Hey, I think there's been some kind of misunderstanding between you and Daniel." I didn't respond. The second message came an hour later. "He says you're overreacting, that this isn't what it looks like." Still nothing. The third message, that evening. "Can we talk? I feel like you owe me at least a conversation after everything." That one made me pause. Not because I felt guilty. Because of the phrasing. You owe me. I opened my notes app.
Scrolled.
Found the entry. $7,200. Total lent over 3 years. Dates. Amounts. Context. Patterns. I took a screenshot. Sent it to Adrienne. "Add this to a small claims filing," I said. "Are you sure?" she asked. "Collection will be unlikely." "It's not about collection," I said. "Documentation," she replied. "Yes." She understood. Lena didn't text again after that. Not to me. I heard, indirectly, that she had refused to let Daniel stay with her. Not immediately. Not when it mattered. Patterns exist in families, too.
Dependency.
Avoidance.
Convenience.
Support that only shows up when it costs nothing. Daniel tried once to come back. 2 weeks after the court denial. Late afternoon, 3:32 p.m. I saw him through the front door camera, standing on the porch, hands in his pockets, looking smaller than I remembered. He rang the doorbell once, then again, then he knocked. I didn't move. I watched. 4 minutes. That's how long he stood there. 4 minutes of waiting for a version of me that no longer existed. Then he left. Adrian filed a no-contact restriction on the property the next morning.
Standard procedure.
He was served within 48 hours. He texted once after that, from a different number. This is insane. I forwarded it, logged, added to the order, and that was the end of that. Vanessa's pregnancy moved forward in the background of all of this. Not my life, but adjacent to it. A variable I didn't control, but couldn't entirely ignore. Because timelines matter. Because outcomes matter. 4 months after Daniel left, the baby was born. A boy. I learned that through Adrienne. Not directly, never directly. The paternity test was court-ordered.
Standard procedure.
Expect
Necessary.
I agreed without hesitation, not because I trusted anything Daniel said, because I trusted data. The results came back 2 weeks later. 99.96% probability. The child was his. I remember sitting at my kitchen table with that information. The same table where I had once apologized for forgetting a dinner reservation. The same table where I had watched my life rearrange itself in quiet, irreversible ways. I sat there for a long time, not crying, not angry, just aware
Of scale. Of consequence.
of the strange, irreversible paths people choose without understanding where they lead. I called Adrienne. What does this change? I asked. For you? She said. Nothing. Legally, emotionally, it's outside your structure now. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. Then we proceed. We proceed, she confirmed. The house stayed quiet.
Consistent.
Mine. I returned to routines fully. Work. Mornings. Evenings. I confirmed reservations when I made them, and when I forgot, nothing happened. No consequence. No exile. No evaluation. Just life. Daniel sent one final message, 4 months after everything was finalized. It came through Adrienne's office. Short.
Control.
I know I can't undo this. I just want you to know I'm sorry. I read it once, then again, not because I needed clarity, because I recognized the structure, the phrasing, the attempt. I forwarded it back to Adrienne. Log it, I said. She paused. No response? No response. A beat. Then she said, quietly, understood. I don't think of this as revenge. That would require a different kind of investment.
Emotion. Intent. Desire to see someone else suffer.
That wasn't it. This was management. A system failed.
At a critical point.
So, I documented the failure, removed the compromised component.
Rebuilt.
Stronger. Cleaner. More stable. The house holds now. That's the simplest way to say it. It holds. There's coffee in the morning, light through the windows, work that makes sense, silence that doesn't feel like absence, just space and structure, and the quiet understanding that when something breaks, you don't always fix it. Sometimes you end it properly and build something that doesn't need to be questioned.